In this video, we'll be looking at how to find an unknown anion for your planning question for your H2A level practical exam. Okay, so this is a qualitative analysis type of questions, okay, where usually it will involve questions such as cations, finding the unknown cations, anions, or conducting redox reactions. So for this video, we'll be focusing on finding unknown anions. So let's get started. All right, so let's take a look at this question, which is from the NYJC 2021 paper 4, question 4A. So in this question, we are given solid Fa7, which is a salt containing 2 cations and 1 anion. So for this video here, we'll be focusing on finding of this unknown anion. All right, so we are provided with an aqueous solution of Fa7. So in other words, right, if you are going to conduct any precipitation reaction, it is already in aqueous state. So you do not need to do any dissolution or dissolving it in your deionized water. Okay, and it is labeled solution, Fa7 solution. Okay, next you will devise a series of simple tests based on the qualitative analysis notes on page 16 to 17. So the QA notes, right, contains the tests for cations and ions as well as gases, and what are the confirmatory tests for these different cations and ions and gases. Okay, so you can find it usually at the last few pages of your paper 4. Okay, so that is referred to as the qualitative analysis notes. Okay, so you're asked to make use of these notes to identify the ions present in the Fa7 solution. In addition, you are also given additional information. The Fa7 does not contain sulfite, does not contain nitrite, and does not contain nitrate. So you know that you do not need to consider the test for these 3 anions. Okay, so you are asked to conduct 3 different tests using only the bench reagents provided. That means those chemicals that are at your bench. Okay, which will allow you to identify the anion, and you're asked to decide if the test, state how you will decide if the test result is positive. Okay, so there are 2 parts, right? You'll notice that in the first part, you are asked to describe the 3 tests. Then after that, you're asked to perform the test that you have described. Okay, and write down your observations. Okay, so write down the observations, and from there identify the anion. So because for this video, I'm going to go through this portion here. Okay, because we are not going to conduct any actual tests. Okay, but once you have written out these 3 tests, right, you can go on to conduct them and identify which one is the anion based on the results of your test. Okay, so now in order to describe these 3 different tests, we will refer to our qualitative analysis notes. And in particular, we'll be looking at the portion on the anions, right? So let me bring that out. All right, so this is the test for anions that can be found in the qualitative analysis notes. So these are the anions that are in your syllabus: carbonate, chloride, bromide, iodide, nitrate, nitrite, sulfate, and sulfite. Okay, and from your from here, we know that we can eliminate the sulfite, we can eliminate nitrate and nitrite. So in other words, right, what we are left to test will be your carbonate, chloride, bromide, iodide, as well as sulfate. So let's take a look at the test to see how we can lump them. So these 5 tests into 3 tests. Okay, so for carbonates, right, they can in order to test for carbonates, we will add acids, and if carbon dioxide is liberated, then that means carbonate is present. Okay, for chloride, we will add silver nitrate. Okay, and then we will add ammonia in excess. Usually, before we add silver nitrate, we'll first add an acid. Okay, then we will add NH3. Okay, and you notice for chloride, bromide, and iodide, right, the test, what you add to test for that is very similar. It's basically adding Ag+, okay, to test for precipitate, and then to add aqueous ammonia to see whether the precipitate is soluble or insoluble or partially soluble. Okay, and the difference okay, would be the color of the PPT. So the color of the PPT tells you whether it's chloride, bromide, or iodide. So in other words, right, for these three anions, we can lump them into one test. And based on the color of the precipitate, as well as whether the precipitate is soluble or not in excess NH3, it will tell us whether it is chloride, bromide, or iodide. Okay? Then we are told there's no nitrite and nitrate, so we do not need to look at these two tests. So we'll go on to look at the sulfate test, which says that we add barium aqueous barium solution. If there's a white PPT form, that means sulfate is present. Okay, and then this is sulfide, which we also do not need to test for based on the question here. So we know that we can we need to test for carbonate and sulfate individually, and for chloride, bromide, and iodide, we can test them, okay, as one single test because they are basically using the same reagents, right? The only difference lies in the color of the PPT and its solubility in excess NH3, which determine which anion it is. So that is how we get 3 tests when we are testing for 5 anions, okay? So we'll add acid and see whether CO2 is being formed. We will add barium chloride, okay, and see whether there's a white PPT to test for sulfate. And we will add silver nitrate solution followed by excess NH3 to see whether it's chloride, bromide, or iodide. So these are the 3 tests. So let's write them in. So in test 1, I'll test for carbonate. So in order to test for carbonate, what I'll do is I will add sulfuric acid to Fa7 solution, okay? Then if carbon dioxide is liberated, then that means carbonate is produced. So I need to tell them how to test for carbon dioxide. So in order to test for carbon dioxide, we will use lime water, which is your aqueous so we'll use lime water to test for carbon dioxide. So CaOH2 is basically your lime water. So add calcium hydroxide solution. So if white PPT is formed when we bubbled the gas in, that means the unknown anion is carbonate. Okay, so that's the first test. Next, we'll write the second test, which is to test for sulfate. I prefer to write these 2 first because they are shorter. Okay, then the longer one, I write it last. Okay, so for the test for sulfate, what I'll do is I will add aqueous barium chloride followed by acid. Okay, then if there's a white PPT that is being formed, okay, that means sulfate is present. Finally, I will write the test to test for chloride, bromide, or iodide. And in order to do so, I will first add aqueous silver nitrate to 1 cm³ of Fa7. Okay, then I will add aqueous ammonia dropwise until in excess. So if chloride is present, I'll have a white precipitate of AgCl, which is soluble in excess ammonia. Okay, if I have bromide, then I'll have a cream precipitate of AgBr, which is partially soluble in excess NH3. Okay, basically I'm just copying from here. Okay, then if it is iodide, then I'll have a yellow precipitate of silver iodide, which is insoluble in excess ammonia. All right, so that is how I test for these 3 anions in a single test.